I should have never looked into that mirror. My grandmother always told me, don't stare at a mirror for too long at night. If you do, something might stare back. I thought it was just an old woman's superstition. I was wrong. It happened when I visited my cousin Daniel in the village. His family had just moved into an old house, the kind that had history in its walls. It was big, quiet, and smelled like dust and something else. Something rotten, like wood that had been wet for too long. From the first night, I felt like something was off. The house had too many shadows, and the air was thick, like it was holding its breath. Then I noticed the mirror. It stood at the end of the hallway, tall and old, with a wooden frame carved with strange symbols. It was too clean, like someone had been taking care of it even though the rest of the house looked forgotten. The first time I noticed something was wrong, it was small. I walked past it late at night to get water. Out of habit, I glanced at my reflection. My footsteps stopped, but my reflection didn't. It took a second longer to follow. I froze. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. The next night, it got worse. Daniel and I were sitting in the living room when the power went out. His parents were asleep, so we used my phone's flashlight to move around. As we passed the hallway, my light hit the mirror. I saw us. And then I saw them. Two extra figures stood in the reflection. They looked just like us, but something was wrong. Their faces. They had none. Just smooth, empty skin where their eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. I grabbed Daniel's arm. Do you see that? He nodded, his breathing shaky. What is that? The faceless ones raised their hands, copying us. But they weren't exact. A second too slow, a little off, like they weren't used to moving like us. Then one of them tilted its head. Further until its neck snapped at an impossible angle. We ran. We locked ourselves in Daniel's room, pushing a chair against the door. I wanted to leave the house, but the hallway mirror was near the front door. We didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Standing. Watching. Waiting. By morning, I told Daniel's mother everything. Her face drained of color. She pulled us close and whispered, "You should have never looked." She called an old man from the village, someone who knew about spirits. He arrived before sunset, carrying a small bag filled with white powder and a heavy hammer. He didn't ask questions. He just walked straight to the mirror. He stared at his reflection for a long time, then sighed. "This is not a mirror," he muttered. "What do you mean?" I asked. He turned to me, his face grim. "It's a door." My hands began to tremble. The old man spread the white powder on the glass, muttering something under his breath. The air grew heavy. The house felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. Then he lifted the hammer and smashed the mirror. The second the glass shattered, we heard it. Screaming. But it wasn't coming from the hallway. It came from inside the mirror. Something had been trapped in there. Something angry. The shards of glass on the floor still reflected something. Not us. Them. They were writhing, clawing at the broken shards, their smooth faces stretching like they were trying to scream. But they had no mouths. No eyes. Just emptiness. The old man swept up the pieces and burned them outside. He told us the mirror had been cursed. It wasn't a reflection. It was a doorway. And something had been waiting on the other side. Waiting for someone to look too long. That night, I covered every mirror in my room. Even now, years later, I don't look at mirrors in the dark. Because I know they are still there. Waiting.